Welcome to the Global Missions Podcast. I'm Maggie, and I'll be your host today, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to Josh Irby. Josh serves with Crew, and he's an author and also the co-host of the Mission Shift podcast. Today we'll be talking about what we can learn from the example of Barnabas and his brand new book, The Barnabas Factor. We've titled this episode, A Closer Look at Barnabas. Well, welcome to the Global Missions Podcast, Josh. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Josh, you are on a mission to bring Barnabas into the church's spotlight. Why are you wanting us to take a closer look at him?
Well, I think most people know who Barnabas is from the Bible. They're familiar with him, and they usually put him in the category of, it's his namesake, of an encourager. So to be like Barnabas is to write an encouraging note to your friend or to give them a pick-me-up when they're feeling down. And these are all great things in terms of being an encourager to people around you. He is the son of encouragement after all. But I don't think most people realize that he also was a generous patron of the church, that he also was a wonderful preacher and teacher, that he was an advocate for other people, that he was a pioneer missionary, that he was someone who could take a person like Paul, who was early in his walking with Jesus, and bring him along till he becomes the person that we know today as Paul. And so we kind of reduce his life down to just, if you're feeling down, go see Barnabas. He'll say something encouraging to you. It's kind of like saying that Wayne Gretzky is a hockey commentator. It's like, well, maybe he did some commentation, but he also did a little more than that. So I would love for people to have a robust and full picture of who Barnabas was, and not just for the sake of getting Barnabas right in that sense and letting him be all he was, but I think uniquely in this moment we're in global missions, we need a lot of the characteristics that Barnabas had and lived out in a way that maybe we didn't 50 years ago in the same way.
Yeah, so when you reflect on Barnabas's life as a whole, what part of his example feels most relevant to us today?
Well, I think about the Antioch situation. So you have the early church, suddenly Greek-speaking people become Christians in Antioch, and the church is starting to grow there. It's one of those moments where this promise that we see through Peter with Cornelius starts to come true. And there's this sensitive moment, especially if you've ever been involved in building a movement or starting a mission or starting a church. There's a sensitive moment when you start to have some momentum, but things can either go really well or horribly wrong at that moment. And so you have the city of Antioch, you have complexity, you have multiple cultures, you have charged ethnic division, which we're going to see later in Acts when they got to decide what do we do about circumcision and these customs and food and things like this. And the apostles in Jerusalem are thinking, who do we send who can handle that kind of complexity? Who can we send who's mature enough to be able to step in without stepping on people, able to speak in without speaking over people, able to listen but also not be drawn away by what he's hearing, but also to guide? And they thought of Barnabas. Well, as I look out at the mission landscape today, there's complexity. In the first mission team that I went on, I was 22 years old for a year in another country. It was 8 early 20-year-olds, all from America.
Well, that can't go wrong.
Well, in one sense, you think that can't go wrong in terms of what the output is in the mission field. But in terms of a team, we all had a very similar background. We even found ways to not get along with all those similarities. We were all 22 and knew everything, so it was kind of what can go wrong with that? But I know a team in Europe right now that has 7 nationalities on it. That's more complex. We need a little bit of that, hey, let's send Barnabas to Antioch kind of thing going on. So where did that come from? How did he do that? How did he walk into the situation and handle it well? So when I look at the global mission landscape, I think, well, we don't just need someone who shows up, who has it all together, but someone who knows how to show up, decode, work well with the people around them. So that's probably one of the biggest relevant points. I would say another one is that Barnabas, he's coming out of Jerusalem, which by far was definitely not the power center of the world. I mean, Rome was the power center of the world. But it was, in a way, the power center of the church at the time. And he managed to go in a way that uplifted and raised up people in the places he went to think, hey, we can do that too. We can send missionaries. And the people that he trained were the elders who commissioned him to go out as missionaries. That kind of transfer of ownership and responsibility, we really need that today in a world where the places that used to be mission fields are sending as well.
Yeah, 100%. So let me just take this opportunity then as a little segue here. Could you give us just an overview of what the Barnabas Factor is? If you're listening and you haven't heard of the Barnabas Factor yet, that's because it's just coming out today at the same time as this episode. So it's hot off the press, and I'm just wondering if you could give us a glimpse into it.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of the history. We were doing a research project as a team. I work on a global mission partnering team. And we interviewed 60 mission leaders around the world and asked them, how do you think missions has changed? And how should we in the West operate differently? This is very practical for our team. It's 2020. It's the pandemic. We don't have other stuff to do. We're stuck in our house. So let's do some research and let's really understand how should we be engaging differently. And we learned a ton from that, things that we were talking about already. And we turned that into a podcast. We started to do more interviews. So fast forward a couple of years, we're kind of somewhere between the first round of interviews and the second. And I'm reading through Acts just in my personal time. And as if for the first time ever, Barnabas just leapt off the page. And I'm like, wait a second, this guy is doing all the things that the people around the world are telling us we need to do more of. Why did I miss this? And then I realized he keeps on showing up. So I actually wrote out 12 different significant places where Barnabas showed up in the story of Acts. And it's a little bit kind of like Forrest Gump, the movie where Forrest is in the background of all the major events, during his time. I'm like, Barnabas is there. Oh, and he's there. Oh, and he's there. So my original plan was I was going to write a book about Barnabas, and here's the chapter settings, and I'll write it. My great wisdom coming to the page to the people out there. And it was around the second round of interviews we were doing. And I was like, well, isn't that just like you, Josh, that you're like, what the world needs is more of Josh's thoughts. Just need to just export that around the world and give everybody my wisdom. I thought, wouldn't it be a much more Barnabas-y way to write a book about Barnabas to recruit 12 different mission leaders and practitioners from around the world who are not. Some are from America, but not from America, not all from Canada, not all from England. In fact, we have people from Latin America, Africa, Asia, Europe involved in this. And to recruit them to write the chapters on Barnabas's life. And this was the hard part, not to tell them what to write. Here's the passage, here's kind of the way we're going to do it together, because I didn't want it to be just a loose confederation of essays, but actually like a book together, that we would link arms together and write this. Here's kind of how we're going to go about telling it, but I'm not going to tell you what to see in the passage. And as I started to receive the chapters back, it's so much fun to do a book where you learn from reading it, and you're just seeing things you never saw before and the angles they take on the perspective. I'll give an example of a chapter on money and Barnabas selling his field and giving the money to the apostles, written by Nydia Garcia Schmidt, a Mexican PhD candidate with Wycliffe, who does research on generosity in Latin America. And she really honed in on the fact that Barnabas was a Levite. I had never even noticed that word. I never thought about that, because in Latin America, there's a big issue with pastors who will say, here's the temple. I represent the temple. Bring everything in to me. And she's saying, no, it's the priesthood of all believers. And Barnabas being a Levite and laying his money at the one who should be receiving, because as a Levite, laying his money at the apostles' feet is sending us a message. So I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I get a little excited about Barnabas. But so I collected these 12 chapters from 12 different global leaders, and we pulled it together into a cohesive book, and I wrote the introduction and the conclusion. But really, this is serving up global wisdom about Barnabas for the global church.
Well, if that description sounds enticing to any of you who are listening, Josh and his team at IVP have been so kind as to give us 3 free copies for you. So if you would like to read The Barnabas Factor and you would like a chance to do it for free, then all you need to do is email us at info@globalmissionstoolbox.com and we will get it to you. As long as you give us your name and your mailing address, we'll make sure that you get your hands on a copy. Josh, I so appreciate that your deep dive into this partnership. It's so biblically grounded. It's got voices from all around the world. As you reflect on everything that you explored throughout this study with Barnabas, what impacted the way that you personally view partnership the most?
So I think everyone is aware that missions has changed. I mean, we can see that in our churches and just everything that's written and spoken about missions today. And yet many times we still go about doing our recruiting of missions, our funding of missions, our sending of missions very similar to what we did before. And so I saw that pretty clearly. And I'm still on a journey asking myself, how can I be the best member of the team, Team Jesus, Team Global Mission, Team Great Commission, and to play my part as best as possible. Now, if that part means gathering people together to write a book, that's great. If that part means standing in the back of the room and cheering someone else on, that's great too. So that's kind of personally in me just having that exposed that, okay, I don't see it all. I need to see more. I don't have it all figured out. I need to figure out more. That'd be one thing. I think another aspect that really struck me is that my background in college, I have an industrial engineering degree. I love systems. I love processes. I love projects. I like making them better and more efficient. I'm very American in that. We're gonna make this efficient. We're gonna make this mission hamburger really fast and hot and served and ready to go. But at its core, partnership is relational. Partnership is about relationship. And sometimes people like me can be going so fast that we're just running over and running by and running through the people that should be the primary part of the partnership anyway. Now, some of this I learned through living in Europe for 13 years and being on mission there and just living at a different pace of life and realizing how important relationship is. But it exposed to me the fact that I've taken the Great Commission, which is a relational command in the sense that I am a follower of Jesus, trying to be his disciples, and I call others along to become disciples as well. That's what making disciples is calling others to follow Jesus also. And I've turned it into a industrial engineering project to be tweaked and made efficient. That's a painful realization, but on the other side of that is a really, really fun mission experience because you get to be friends with people from around the world. You get to lock arms together and do something together. You get to learn. You don't have to have all the answers. Praise the Lord. You get to learn from the people you're working with. Learn from the people you're reaching even. And that is a much more fun way to do mission. And if our mission is to make disciples of all nations, which it is, until Jesus comes back, we're always not done. That can be a little depressing, I guess. Just the moreness of that, the I have to wake up today and I'm still not done and I still have more to do. So how are you going to do this I started in mission right out of college at 22. So I say I lived to 80, that's 80, I'll do 82, it's easier. 60 years. How do you maintain 60 years of staying on this? But if this is a relational mission, then 60 years of this, think how many friends I'm going to have. Think how many relationships I'm going to have. Think how many experiences we're going to have together. And some of those experiences are sitting by the sea in some country and talking about how God's changed our life. Some of those experiences are going to be getting called out because I just came in and totally did the wrong thing and they want to call me out on that. And then I have to confess and say I'm sorry and receive forgiveness and then grow deeper in our relationship because of that. But I can maintain that in the power of the Holy Spirit because that's fun. And that's what we're built for.
I feel like you'll really enjoy this. We have an organization here in Canada that works with a lot of different agencies to provide member care. And their slogan, I guess, or tagline maybe, is ministry at the speed of relationships. And I just think that's really beautiful. I've always loved that. The first time I heard it, it stuck in my head. I was like, that is it. That's perfect.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And that speed is slower than ministry at the speed of the American mission industrial complex, which sometimes we fall into.
Yeah, well, actually, that kind of leads into my next question, because we know that the center of gravity for the global church has shifted these days. The majority of Christians now live in the global south. So how should that reality shape or reshape, perhaps, the way those of us in the West think about our role in global missions?
Well, I'll start with how I think it shouldn't shape us, which I've seen before. It should not cause us to say, well, we did our part, time to go take a nap. Let those other people handle it. We tossed the ball to them, they got the ball, now they can run with it. It should not do that, and it has done that. I think there's even, in Canada and America, anybody with their eyes open can recognize we have spiritual needs here too. And there's things we need to do in our own countries. And I think that always was the case and will always be the case. We don't sin because we have excess of spiritual greatness that we want to export. We sin because Jesus said to go. And we go because Jesus calls us to go. So what it should not cause us to do is to say, I guess we played our part of the game and now we can sit on the sidelines. So that's the first thing. It also should not cause us to go into our closet with our whip and whip ourselves on the back about how horrible we've been or how horrible we are in our mission partnership, because that's just not helpful. That's not what Jesus does. He doesn't say, you're a sinner and never forget that. It's you're a sinner, yeah, you fail. Like a 22-year-old American, a bunch of Americans on mission, man, did we fail in all different kinds of ways. We're also called by God and we said yes to him, and awesome things came out of that that's still bearing fruit today. So we don't have to get it perfect for Jesus to use us. And so that's what it should not cause. Let me just start with that. But I think what it should cause is to realize that wherever we're showing up in the world, there's probably other people showing up. And there's probably already something going on. And we need to take that into account. And that the places where we're going, where many times there's a mature church there, that their opinion matters. And that we should look at how we can lock arms with them. And also that our task in this age, where other people are sending, may be more about helping other sending areas come to maturity as we go together. One example is my friend Lio, who's an author in the book. He's from Latin America. He talks about this idea of often receiving areas receive the benefits of the systems that we have set up in the sending areas. So real easy example is we send them money, they get the money. The money is the fruit on the tree that we've had generations of figuring out how to build, how to raise money, right? How to put on an event, make a brochure, connect with partners, and to raise that money. So Lyo talks about the idea of transferring that technology. Don't just transfer the fruit, but transfer the technology. Don't just give us money. Come and teach us how to build the tree that produces that fruit, how to raise money, so that we become mature in that process. And you can run that through materials, strategy, leadership development, all the different things. How can we, while going, export the technology that supports our going as well? So that's just one of the ways of showing up differently.
I love that you mentioned Lyo's chapter, because I actually wanted to ask you about the visibility factor specifically. So the way that Josh organized this book is each chapter kind of focuses in on one of the characteristics of Barnabas and how the church can partake in it and follow that example. And I found the visibility factor really compelling. So could you explain first how we see that in Barnabas, and then also what it looks like to live that out today?
And I'll be honest, I teared up when I read that chapter the first time. I don't know if it's fair to cry at your own book, but that was like one of those things where it was just really moving, because I've seen all of the kind of the negative things he draws out happen, and it's painful. But also just the beauty of when you do give visibility. So the chapter is based on Acts 15, where you have, again, maybe crisis moment in the church. You've got many Gentiles coming to know the Lord. You've got a faction of the early church who are really strict on Jewish customs and thinks that everybody needs to follow the law of Moses and therefore be circumcised. The Judaizers, as they're often referred to, and they're coming to the apostles and they're promoting that philosophy, and the church is gathered to make a decision about that, because Paul and Barnabas had come back from their journey. So if you think about, if they would have messed up that decision, that would not have been great. The end result is the Gentiles rejoice and thank the Lord, and the church grows. So imagine if whatever they had done the opposite of that, that would have been a really hard time. So they're making a decision about people who could have not been in that room. That is the invisibility reality. That often in missions, we're making decisions about people who are not in the room. And even worse, maybe we don't even know what's going on over there because it's so far away or culturally far away. But fortunately, there was Barnabas and Paul, and they came and they brought some of the people, fruit of their ministry there. And they're in that meeting. And what are they doing? They're giving visibility to the invisible people who are not in the room, who are most affected by the decision being made in that room. And I love what happened. So Peter gives like a theological argument. He says, remember the sheep that came down, centurion, cut and eat, all that stuff. He gives a theological argument based on that. It says, Paul and Barnabas stood up and said what God had done among the Gentiles. No theological argument. Just, here's what we're seeing among these people that you don't see. And they just shared it. And James says, how could we not follow what is happening? And so the idea of the room where the decision happens, or the table where decisions are happening, too often we're making decisions that affect people that are not in the room. And Lyo does a great job of talking about what happens if that keeps going. What do the invisible people do? How do they kind of try to get attention? Sometimes they, will blow up your whole plans just to kind of get more visibility. Or they might just quietly leave and do their own thing. And then you lose all that wisdom and experience and different perspective. And then what the people on the visible side often do to keep people from being visible, which is a sad reality, or what they can do to help promote more visibility. I think those are such important things, especially if you're a church in the West and you're wanting to engage globally. How can you bring more visibility to those who are invisible so you can better be engaged in what they're doing? Well, here's kind of two real practical ideas related to that. One of them is, and I was talking with a colleague, Cass, who was going to Latin America to working with a family ministry and was wanting to do a seminar, but realizing that most of the Western family ministry materials is based on a husband and a wife and children, like a nuclear family. Like 90+% of our material is based on that. Well, there are 11 different, they did research in Latin America, 11 different types of family structures. And guess what is the least prevalent one? The one that 90% of our material is based on. So Cass is like, how do I do a seminar down there? And so we came up with this idea of a reverse seminar. So you go, and your point is, how can I draw out as much learning as I can from the people at the seminar? How can I ask great questions? Now, you study, you know stuff. You're not saying you come in like you're a blank slate, you don't know anything. You're going to interact, but instead of like, I'm going to make this box and I'm going to go down and I'm going to dump the box on the people at the seminar, it's how do I come with questions that draw, what are the big challenges you're facing in your families here in Latin America? What have you tried? Have you thought about this? How does this apply to theology? And so you're learning at a seminar you're leading. That gives visibility to those who are invisible. And this kind of fits in with an overall idea that I think is really important, especially for global networks of missions or global organizations or churches that want to engage globally, is that we need to do less produce and export and more listen and promote. So we produce, we write, we translate, we send over, we mail, and that's often what we do. How can we go around the world and listen to what is being said and learned, and then to promote that, which is kind of what I'm doing trying to do in this book, is listening and promoting. Now, there's a reason why we don't do that. People would rather have a known author write a book than 12 less known authors. It's harder to sell this book. Don't really care about that. I just think that's what we should do. So we're going to have to take some choices and say, I'd rather sell less books, but have that book be more useful. But some of those ideas like reverse seminars, listening and promoting, transferring the technology, some ways that we can be more helpful and also to give more visibility to those that don't have the network and exposure that we do.
Yeah, those are all fantastic examples of what it can look like in practice, and also just such an encouragement that there actually is a way to do this. It's not all just coming down on Western voices to say like, shh. There's actually a really helpful and really fruitful way to engage in these conversations. So thank you so much for that. We are so excited that the Barnabas Factor is now available for purchase, and I'm going to give a quick reminder here that you're welcome to email us for a free copy. And I also just wanted to ask Josh quickly if you had any other resources you'd direct our listeners to, if they want to keep learning about this, certainly. But I also think a big part of that visibility and living that out is starting to incorporate that into our own diets. So not always just reaching for the book from the most popular person that we're already familiar with, but also kind of going outside of our comfort zone with maybe a podcast to listen to or a YouTube channel to follow. Like there are a lot of different ways to hear from the global South that are a bit unconventional for us. So I'm just curious if you have any directions you'd like to give our audience.
One starting place that I've been involved in is the Mission Shift podcast, which is what was the result of the research that we did. We didn't set out to make a podcast. We just felt like we wanted to share this with other people. And the way we did that is much like we did the book. We recorded the interviews that we did in the second round, and then we tried to organize them in a way that we're on a learning journey, learning from our global friends. So this is not, again, come hear Josh's wisdom. This is listen to the wisdom that exists around the world. Now that would be also a good place to follow the thread of the people that are interviewed on there and see, well, what have they produced? What could I read from them? So that would be one place I would suggest. And we're coming out with a third season. Also, some of the authors in the book have books themselves, two from Western authors that are really good. Paul Borthwick's book, Western Christians and Global Missions, which has been around for a while, but still is a great read. Mary Liederleitner's book on cross-cultural partnership is the best I've read about money. Mary's book is great. She has some great thinking on that. And then you can look through the other authors and see what they've produced. Ron and Star Nelson, who are doing an amazing job of mobilizing African Americans to the mission. They have some great material and training in missions, especially if you are connected to any African American churches that are wanting to send. That is a really great resource. So yeah, just kind of follow the threads of some of the authors and see what kind of treasures you find.
Yeah, there's your homework, everybody. You're set. That's enough reading and listening for a couple weeks at least. I'm glad you mentioned the mission shift, and I'm so excited to know that there's another season coming out. I really enjoyed, as I was researching and preparing for this episode, I listened to a number of conversations that you guys had, and I was really impressed. It's great stuff. So definitely take a look at that. And then finally, Josh, we always give our guests a chance to speak directly to the churches that are listening. So do you have any encouragement for them today?
I do. I don't think there's a more exciting time to be involved in global mission. There was a time when we looked out over, the church looked out over the vast world, and there was just darkness and no light of the gospel in many places. We thought, God, how in the world are you going to bring people to you in these places like China and India and Africa and Latin America? And now those places where the seed of the gospel has been planted are planting seeds in other places. Like, how can you not get fired up about that? That is so exciting. And now we can, take a victory lap, sit on the couch, feel good, or we can stay involved and enjoy this era of mission. Now, maybe that means we're not driving the bus, but man, let's be on the bus. That's so fun. So keep staying involved, keep sending people. Maybe train them a little differently than we have before, but keep sending people, because we still can be a blessing to the world, and being involved in mission is a blessing to those who send. Churches grow when they send. Ministries grow when they send, because it keeps fresh that willingness to, if Jesus says go, we say, yes, sir, we're going. And God changes us that way. I've experienced that personally. I've experienced that in ministry, that when you go and send when it hurts, that's when you really grow. And then finally, the global church needs what we have. And so let's not keep that from them. And we have stuff we can learn from the global church that will help us to grow. So go and send, but stay open to how you're going to learn. Let God surprise you that you show up in a place where you think you might be the only one bringing the gospel there. Do you find there's other people there? And you want to learn from them about that, because there's much, much blessing to be found there.
Thank you. Thanks. If there is anyone listening that wants to engage with this further or go a little bit deeper with you, is there a way that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty involved on LinkedIn at Josh Irby. You can find me there. You can also, through the Mischief podcast, reach out and it gets back to me. But I'd love to hear thoughts on the book or thoughts on what we talked about today, or just any kind of connections that might be fruitful.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for the Barnabas Factor. And also thanks for joining us today on the Global Missions Podcast.
Thanks so much. It was great to be here.
Thanks for joining us. If you were encouraged by today's episode, we would love for you to rate and review us to help others find our program. To connect with our team, find all of our past episodes and other resources, visit globalmissionstoolbox.com. Join us again to continue exploring this grand adventure of being Christ's witnesses to the ends of the earth.